To know more about the fascinating folklore of Nagaland, we invite you to follow us as our stories are the result of arduous exploration in reliable sources like Naga Journal, Intac Archive, Sahapedia, and Eastern Mirror, which preserve and document the cultural traditions of the tribes of Nagaland. Now then, let's begin with this incredible story. The protagonists of this story are two sisters who grew up in the small remote village of Ao, surrounded by mountains and forests. From a very young age, the sisters shared their days working in the fields and helping with household chores, but their personalities could not have been more opposite. The eldest sister, with a strong and temperamental character, always seemed determined and energetic. Her expression was serious, and her eyes, dark and deep, revealed an almost fierce determination. However, this same strength made her feel insecure and competitive towards those she perceived as more dear than her, especially her younger sister. The younger sister, in contrast, was sweet-tempered and gentle. She was loved in the village for her kind nature and worked hard in the fields, finding joy in every task she performed. Her smile was warm, and her positive attitude earned her the affection of her parents and neighbors. This difference in treatment generated deep resentment in the older sister, who from childhood began to see in her younger sister an obstacle to receiving her parents' affection. The family did not help to dissipate this tension. Without realizing it, the parents gave more attention to the younger sister because of her sweet and kind nature. The older sister perceived this attention as an unfair preference and began to feel that she had to compete for the love and recognition of her family. Her pride and sense of competition pushed her to behave cruelly towards her sister, trying to sabotage her work or minimize her achievements. This resentment that was growing in the older sister's heart manifested itself in small acts of contempt. It started with disapproving glances and biting comments, but over time, these attitudes evolved into malicious actions. The older sister could not stand that her younger sister, whom she considered weak and submissive, received all the attention and affection she craved. In her mind, she believed that treating her sister badly could make her stronger, not realizing the emotional damage she was causing her. This fractured relationship between the sisters created a tense and difficult environment at home, an atmosphere that filled the younger sister with sadness, who did not understand why her own sister felt so much hostility towards her. Life in the Ao village was marked by the rhythms of nature, the changing of the seasons, and the constant work of the villagers to support themselves and their families. Every year, the community celebrated the arrival of the harvest season with a festival in which they expressed their gratitude to the land. It was an event full of colors, songs, and dances, where men and women dressed in their best clothes and shared the fruits of their labor with friends and family. The harvest not only symbolized the collective effort, but also the sacred bond they had with the land. For the sisters, these rituals were part of their upbringing. They both participated in harvesting rice, preparing traditional meals, and praying to the spirits who protected the crops. The younger sister felt a deep connection to these traditions and worked diligently at every step, while the older sister, filled with envy and frustration, viewed these activities with a mixture of apathy and resentment. Although she contributed to household chores, her listless attitude and distant gaze reflected a disdain for everything around her. The holidays were not only a time of thanksgiving, but also of lessons for the young. During the nights of celebration, the elders would gather around campfires to tell stories. These narratives included tales of heroes, spirits, and moral teachings that highlighted the importance of honesty, bravery, and family unity. The younger sister listened to these stories intently, absorbing every word, while her older sister would walk away, feeling like she had no place in what she perceived as an unjust environment. Each harvest cycle and village ritual reinforced the villagers' connection to the land and to each other, and taught everyone that their fates were intertwined with those of their community and their natural environment. For the eldest sister, however, this festive atmosphere did not bring peace. The celebrations and rituals only increased her sense of alienation, seeing how everyone in the village cherished her younger sister. As the seasons changed and nature took its course, the relationship between the sisters became increasingly strained. While the Ao people celebrated abundance and togetherness in the sisters' home, seeds of resentment took deep root, setting the stage for inevitable conflict. The conflict between the sisters did not arise overnight. It was a feeling that slowly brewed in the heart of the eldest sister, like a fire that was stoked with every small gesture of affection towards her younger sister. What at first were disapproving glances and small sarcastic comments soon transformed into acts of contempt that reflected the bitterness that was growing within her. One day, while working together in the fields, the elder sister noticed the neighbors praising her younger sister's dedication, commenting on how hardworking and kind she was. Jealousy took hold of her, and in an attempt to trip her sister, she threw a rock into the path she was walking on. Although the act did not cause serious physical harm, it was a sign of the hostility she felt. The younger sister, bewildered, said nothing, as she did not understand the reason for the aggression. From that point on, the acts of cruelty began to increase. The elder sister took every opportunity to make her sister feel inferior, either by criticizing her efforts or by ruining her tasks. If the younger sister spent hours harvesting rice, her elder sister would find a way to waste part of the harvest under the pretext that she had harvested it poorly. If the younger sister put in the effort to prepare a special meal, her elder sister would mock her, telling her that her work was useless and that no one would appreciate her efforts. These constant attacks not only affected the younger sister's spirits, but also began to erode her self-confidence. Although she was a strong and resilient young woman, the pain of feeling rejected and mistreated by her own sister left a mark on her heart. Silently, she tried to understand why her older sister felt such contempt for her, but she never found an answer that justified such hostility. The relationship was becoming increasingly toxic, and the older sister seemed to find pleasure in making her sister suffer. Sometimes, while working together, the older sister would throw dirt on her sister's work, or let tools get lost in the field, knowing that it would be the younger sister who would have to pick it up. At other times, she would falsely accuse her of being lazy or careless in front of their parents, seeking to make her look irresponsible. The elder sister's resentment was so deep that even days of festivity and rest became an opportunity to hurt her sister. During one of the harvest celebrations, when the Owl people gathered to dance and share stories around the fire, the elder sister took the opportunity to humiliate her sister in front of the other villagers. As the younger sister was singing along with the children, the elder sister interrupted her and began to mock her voice, eliciting laughter from other young people who did not understand the cruel nature of the act. The younger sister, embarrassed, stopped singing and walked away silently, tears welling in her eyes. For the younger sister, each of these acts was like another stone added to the weight of her heart, which was slowly losing the joy that had always characterized it. Despite her older sister's attempts to make her feel insignificant, the younger sister tried to keep her spirits high, clinging to the teachings of the elders and the love she felt for the land they cultivated. However, her sister's constant malice began to take its toll on her soul, and a feeling of deep sadness began to take hold of her. Deep down, the older sister was aware of the pain she was causing, but her own insecurity and desire to be loved and acknowledged drove her to act cruelly. Every act of contempt toward her sister was an attempt to fill a void she herself did not understand, a silent cry for help that manifested itself through hostility. However, far from achieving the connection and validation she craved, her actions only further alienated her sister and increased the emotional distance between them. As the days passed, the elder sister's resentment and the younger sister's sadness continued to grow, like two opposing forces feeding off each other. The conflict between the sisters reached its breaking point one afternoon in the kitchen, when the pent-up tension finally boiled over into an explosion of violence. The elder sister, frustrated and angry after a trivial argument, grabbed a metal spatula she had been using for cooking. In a fit of rage, she turned sharply and, without thinking, hit her younger sister with the spatula, still hot from the fire. The blow left a painful and visible mark on the younger sister's arm, who, shocked and terrified, could not hold back the tears that sprang to her eyes. It wasn't just the physical pain that consumed her, but the betrayal she felt at having been hurt by her own sister, someone who was supposed to protect and care for her. At that moment, she understood that the situation had reached an unsustainable limit. The older sister, still with a tense face and dark eyes, did not show immediate regret. There was a mixture of pride and contempt in her expression, as if that act of violence was the culmination of all her repressed feelings. But deep inside her, something was breaking too. She knew she had crossed a line she could not undo. Stunned and devastated, the younger sister could no longer remain in that home. She retreated to her room, gathered some of her belongings, and without a word ran off into the woods. Desperate and heartbroken, the younger sister entered the forest, her only refuge in the midst of so much sadness. The forest, with its tall trees and deep shadows, welcomed her in silence like an old friend who understood her pain. As she advanced, tears fell from her eyes, leaving an invisible trail on the ground covered with dry leaves. She felt that the thickness of the forest embraced her, giving her the comfort that her own family had denied her. As she walked, she sought solace in the murmur of the trees and the soft song of the birds who seemed to understand her suffering. The forest, vast and enigmatic, offered her a peace she had not known for a long time. She sat at the foot of an old tree, with trembling hands and a tired soul, and began to whisper her deepest thoughts to the wind, as if the roots and branches could hear her. At that moment, an idea crossed her mind. She wanted to transform herself, to stop being the person who had been hurt and betrayed, and to find a way to be free from her pain. She closed her eyes and wished with all her might to escape from that suffering, to become something that could fly away, to a place where pain and memories could not reach her. There, surrounded by the vastness of the forest and under the open sky, the younger sister felt a profound change within her, as if her spirit connected with something beyond the earthly. Sitting under that tree, in the middle of the forest that seemed to hear her cries, the younger sister felt her heart, previously weighed down by pain, slowly lighten. She closed her eyes and allowed her thoughts to flow freely, connecting with the forest and its serenity. At that moment, a change began to occur within her. She felt as if her desires for liberation, her longing for peace, were transforming her into something beyond the human, into something ethereal and free. According to our tradition, one who achieves a deep connection with nature can find spiritual refuge there. It was then that the younger sister felt her body no longer her own, and her spirit soar like a bird. Although there was no visible magic or physical transformation, deep inside her she knew that she had ceased to be just the wounded young girl, and had become the symbol of something greater. She imagined her arms transforming into wings, light and strong, that could lift her above her pain. In the younger sister's mind, her essence merged with that of a bird, and at that moment the legend of Klang, the bird that symbolized freedom and peace, was born. She felt that she could fly, cross the sky, and observe from above the world that had previously seemed so cruel to her. There, among the branches of the trees and the wind, she found a peace she had never known. Her spirit, now free, was freed from the chains of pain, and in her flight, she left behind the sadness that had once tormented her. From that day on, when the Klang song echoed through the forest, the Ao villagers heard it as an echo of the young girl who had suffered and finally broken free. The story of her transformation was passed down by word of mouth, and the Klang became a symbol of hope for all those who sought to redeem their pain through nature. For the Ao tribe, the Klang represented more than just a bird. It was a reminder that freedom and inner peace are within reach for those who seek to come to terms with their own wounds. Every time they heard its song, the villagers thought of the younger sister and the value of embracing kindness and compassion. The bird, a symbol of the deep connection between man and nature, reminded everyone that even in the darkest of times, there is always a chance to find peace.